Welcome to the Hit Factor Podcast. I'm Tyler Turner. I have hijacked this podcast along with my friend Jay Beal and the one and only Potato. Say hey, guys.
Hey,
Hey, and we are happy to be recording in lieu of Jeff and Jeremy. Jeff is continuing to sort of expand his financial empire, and I think that's taken a lot of his time. And Jeremy is prepping for another 1911 build class that'll be in November, and no shade at all. If that's got to be an amazing experience, and if you have the faintest interest in really understanding the sort of craftsmanship that goes into a fine firearm, you got to pay attention to his social media and see when he advertises the next one of these classes and make your way out there. I imagine it's a pretty intense week. And at the end of it, you have 1911 and 45.
yeah, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, that's something I want to do one day because I don't think I can afford a Reed Customs gun, but I might be able to afford a Turner Customs with a little hint, a little sprinkling of Jeremy Reed magic on it. But
Yeah.
I echo that. If you're not following him on Instagram, you need to because it's art, it's functional art, and seeing the amount of time and effort that goes into like just a single rear sight is sort of remarkable. Like
There's so,
you could put one of his rear sights in a shadow box. Like
I
just
flipped through his pictures and showed them on a bit, on the large screen on a computer to my mom to sort of show like this is the level of artistry that people who really kind of understand their craft, and she's really into metalwork and art in general, and she could sort of immediately see like
mhm.
just from the edges, the way that shadows hit different parts of the metal, like how much sort of care and attention went into
Yeah,
that. And that's not just something you pick up in a weekend with a set of files.
yeah. Well, the guy, I mean, I I hesitate to blow any more smoke up Jeremy's direction, but
yeah,
the guy's just an artist through and through. Like, his the trout drawing, his painting that he put on his shirt. Like the guy's just talented. He's an artist, not just a gunsmith. So I feel like I need to insult Jeremy
yeah,
to
yeah.
weigh this out, but
We should. We'll let him have it for like a little bit, and then we
okay.
can throw results in.
There's a non-zero chance he never hears this, just to be clear.
Yeah. Well, I don't know why I'm expecting that Jeremy and Jeff will listen. I mean, maybe Jeff will. I don't know.
Oh, he will once we get into our topic tonight.
Okay.
And we can use whatever segue we want to get there. We should acknowledge that must be 3 weeks ago now that Handgun Nationals went by, and Jeremy won the single most important distinction of anyone in the entire match, which is to say he beat Jeff.
That's true.
And it's been a minute. I don't know the last time Jeremy beat Jeff, but it might be 2019. So this one was a long time coming.
Yeah, Jeff's been on a heater of late, and Jeremy's gotten the worst end of that matchup. So this will go in the record books. You're not going to be able to take that one away from him. So
No, when it really mattered, Jeremy beat Jeff.
mm-hmm. So
Yep.
good job, Jeremy.
Good job, Jeremy. Ah,
So there's
we insult.
go ahead, go for it, Jay.
Well, we insult him by just saying that he didn't win. We could do that. Like he
John
didn't win.
Vlieger did.
Yeah, Vlieger did, and Vlieger was upset with me for not picking him to win. So I'm sorry, John. It's just hard to bet against Savizhny. It's like really hard to do that. But
I'm
John,
sure Vlieger would be upset with me, except he doesn't know who I am. So I'm
yeah,
safe.
he
Well,
knows.
I mean,
We shot with John a couple times or whatever.
It's okay.
I mean, yeah, no disrespect to John, but it pre-match it was very hard to bet against Savigny.
Yeah,
I it's hard when you're making odds to leave him out of the top spot. But I was happy for John.
Yeah.
He shot a really good match and put it all together. I was proud for him. He was like obviously, you know, ecstatic, emotional, about having won. I actually like ran into him at the save table after the match was all wrapped up, and the scores had just refreshed, and he was pumped, and that was a special moment. So I'm proud for John.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well,
you had the misfortune of shooting production and going headfirst into the meat grinder that was JJ Ricasa.
Yeah, I don't
I
know.
mean, everyone in that match not named JJ went headfirst into the meat grinder. It looks like Mason shot an amazing match day 2
Yeah,
and 3, but the grinder was
right,
already going.
right. I mean, in any other match, what Mason was able to do would have led to an easy title. Not easy title, but you know what I mean. Like the way he shot, but I don't even know what to say about JJ's performance other than it was truly next level. Like it's unusual to be in the super squad and even among that tier of shooters have someone like head and shoulders above the rest. But I mean from stage one, from the jump, he was just uh he was on another level and he maintained that throughout the entire match. Like no one was touching him. It became obvious after maybe not day one. Like he put up a big lead in day one, but I think the moment when everyone knew was on day two when he arrived and like just kept going. Like there was no change between his day one and day two shooting. He was going to maintain that pace, and everyone knows at that point, like you're not going to catch this guy. It was it was it was remarkable to watch. Um, yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. He's he was on a totally different level for the match.
Well, but something happened for you, not to do with JJ, but something you took from that match. You brought home with you, and then you jumped into carry optics, and you landed running like in a sprint. How?
Well, yeah, I, the match was so Handgun Nationals did something for me. Well, it did several things, but number one, after the match is over, I was pretty disappointed, or maybe disillusioned is a better way to describe it. Not with not with placement, not with percentage. It was the knowledge of how far off I still am. Not from a title, because I realistically speaking, that's not the kind of guy. That's not the kind of shooter that I'm probably going to be just because of my situation, my limitations, uh, and and my level of effort that I'm willing to put in. So it's not about that. It's just that working, training, and then realizing you've got a deficiency in your training, and you've got a deficiency in like the plan you took to the match that led to the result. Like, make no mistake about it. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying. Like, I received exactly what I deserved and exactly what my training uh, uh, bought, for lack of a better word. Like, I bought myself a seventh place, 80 mid 80s finish by the way I trained and my strategy. So I'm not mad about that. It's just you go and you work, and you realize when shooting with all these guys that you're still that much farther out of that next tier. Maybe touching a podium. And at some point, I want to pick Jay's brain about this, being now a guy who is threatening for titles, who has crossed into that upperest tier of GM, national type guy. But yeah, go ahead.
So Saul brought up, well, because I want to bring us back to the match you shot, because I was talking to Saul the other day, and he's like Tyler shot a local match and it was awesome. I could tell he had fun. And I'm like, whoa, that's so interesting. Like, how could you tell he had fun? Like, what is this power that you have? You're like, so I was just like, I looked at the scores, and I just knew he was like super fast, and like I don't know, like one overall by, or did you win overall by a bit? No, second.
Second to PCC. It doesn't count. He won handgun by a healthy margin.
Oh yeah, and so from this assessment, which you laid it out really nicely from shooting nationals, where you look at your performance not based on percentage or placement, but based on like how you actually just feel about your performance, which I think is like the only real you can, though it can be muddled by numbers. So like, what was it then that you specifically took back, and then how did you use it?
Yeah, so I would say, like, if overall, and I hate to take it back to the turtle hoser spectrum, but I guess it applies. You know, if you had to characterize like my shooting and the way I approach shooting, it would be like careful or carefully. Like I'm just careful, and even when I don't intend to be, even when I say or approach a stage and say like I'm going to give it my all, like still in the subconscious is careful. Everything is carefully choreographed. Everything is, uh, take pains to get the points, all that kind of stuff. So that's baked in really deep. That's really deep in my head and in my heart and the way I approach things. So, and that the thing about it is, it works. It
Yeah,
works in certain contexts. Okay, it works. Uh, it helps that traditionally I've shot low cap minor divisions. And historically, that was a really surefire way to have a good result, is to shoot carefully and collect the points. And plus, it just suits my personality in general. Risk aversion. You know, be conscientious, all that kind of stuff. Uh, that's a rabbit trail we probably shouldn't go down, but how much of your shooting personality and psychology is associated like with your just who you are and like your general psychology.
it's gotta
but but
gotta be
yeah,
together.
but we won't go down that way. But no, but I think it's easy and it's comfortable because it works so well. And at a local level too, like it doesn't, I hope no one misunderstands this, but it's not said like in an arrogant fashion, but it's not very hard to beat everyone at your local if you're just careful, like if you don't do anything
You don't
stupid.
win. You don't win. They lose. You let the people around you lose. And
Mm-hmm.
the only, and typically at a local match, there's not many people around you. And the couple people who might be around you, you just let them lose.
Mm-hmm.
Like you let them tag no shoots, you let them shoot themselves into standing loads or whatever it is, like depending on the division and the context. It's really easy to let people lose. And then you look at like that match, and again, not to inflate JJ's ego here, but he went and won.
Right.
Like he and this is really really obvious to some people, and yet it's hard for me to take it into my heart. The way hit factor works, if it's points per second, if I'm giving up 1 to 2 seconds, and I give up more than that, but if I was giving up 1 to 2 seconds every stage by being careful in a match that's a normative 7 hit factor match, right? 10 stages, I give up 70 to 140 points by being careful that I
Mm-hmm.
cannot get back. That there are not enough alphas to make up for those 140 points.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
And so that's like if it's. Sorry, go ahead, Jay.
No, and so like this is stuff that I think about all the time, because I'm similar in this way, and so I'm always experimenting with and like finding good stuff to bring my out of the, cautious, just like execute tidily, don't trip on fault lines, that kind of stuff. Like what is the safe plan, and how does it look safe when I'm shooting? So I'm always looking for things and curious about what people have found to avoid that, and like be a little more free and not care so much about that,
Mhm.
which is, it sounds like you did at this local.
Yeah, and I promise I'll quit, setting the stage and like get to the meat of things as soon as I can. But I was over, and I can't remember who it was talking at Handgun Nationals at the time, but they were discussing, I think Khalil,
Yeah.
V-Ray, his style of shooting and how, as opposed to the choreography that is sort of the status quo in USPSA, like highly choreographed shooting where everything is pre-planned. He's got so much of an improvisational style. Like he's going to focus less on the choreography and just get there, and like you're going to figure it out. You're going to use your body dynamically, like to make this stuff happen on the way. Uh, I thought that was very interesting. It kind of ties into some takeaways. Just overhearing conversation in the Super Squad about a shooter half the world away. Uh, but I thought that was very interesting. Less on the choreography and more on being able to execute dynamically, uh, improvise, in the moment, things like that. Um, but yeah, so in reflection on Hanga Nationals, I had some time to think about it, and I've got some choices to make. Not about really like my time or the rounds I can commit to this, because I'm pretty much maxed out on that. I could, you know, and maybe this is how I'll insult Jeremy. This is perfect,
Oh,
actually.
nice.
I
Nice.
could pick up a single stack or a pair of single stacks and shoot single stack and hide in single stack because, all due respect, that's what it would be, right? If
Well,
my
your safe
answer
style would be so well rewarded. You wouldn't make
exactly,
mistakes. You wouldn't have anyone locally to shoot against you, and then when you went somewhere else, you probably do very well because it's single stack is Virginia count. The entire division is shot Virginia
right,
count. Every single stage,
right,
like the way the math works out. So yes, I'm
right.
sure that would feel very safe.
So that
Can't
that was
imagine
a
anyone would ever do that.
that was a very real option, and I entertained that, and I thought about like picking up some single stacks. I'll go back to 10 rounds minor, and I'll go stack plaques, and then I thought about that, and I said, you know, that would be pretty stupid because the state of the sport is fast and high cap and optics, and like basically that's admitting you're done with your progression in the sport. Like you're not going to get any better. You're going to go hide in single stack and protect your ego by doing so. Stay in the sport, still shoot, compete, but not really. I think the state of things, is pretty clear. Like if I want to continue progressing, if I want to still be learning, I've got to, as much as I may hate it, I've got to go to optics and the high cap and learn how to operate at what is now the speed threshold. Um, so I kind of resolved that, that's the approach I'm going to take. I'm going to be a big boy and do that. Uh, and the other thing is, and here I need to tell you, Saul, that you were right and I was wrong because a few months back, I think on a Training Group Live podcast, I had described my approach to locals, and I said, you shouldn't use locals as training. That's inappropriate. You should strive to win and act as you would at a major match. Treat it like a major match, and you should uh, attempt to win those. And you told me at that time in Discord that I was wrong. I was like, but here I am saying you were right. I was wrong. I for too long have been approaching locals as something, that I need to win. I need to stack up local match wins. To what end? You know, like having reflected on this again, like what why? How does that benefit me? Like, how is that going to drive my progression, my training? So, uh, all this lead up to say, like, when I went to the recent local match, um, I'm just gonna go for it. I'm gonna be aggressive, super aggressive. I'm going to always accept the riskiest plans, even when it would make sense, like to lay back. I was actually in this position, had a comfortable lead. Old Tyler would have, there was an option where you're crossing on the back fault line, position right, position left, and on that way across, the first target that that you see is a stack. It was an IPSC stack with a very tight top target, like I don't know, 3-4 inches of A zone. Old Tyler would have gotten himself to the left position, taken everything I saw from that position. Instead, I shot that on the move and ate a no shoot. I made it up, but I ate a no shoot, and I would have won the overall had I not done that. But it doesn't matter because I'm going to take riskier plans, operate at a higher speed, trying to earn myself a new gear, like the type of gear that I'm going to be able to hopefully take to nationals in the future, and hang with those guys instead of leaving a second or 2 seconds or 2.5 seconds on every stage, because that's just the only way I see to change this, is to change it like deep within my heart and deep within my brain, to get out of this careful mindset and like transform myself into a different kind of shooter entirely. Like,
I like what you said about earning another gear. And so, because I think I thought about it, like, or maybe people think this way. I think I thought about it this way, where you see people who have other gears and you're like, wow, they just have one. It's like, well, they probably earned it at one point. And I bet they used it too. And I bet
right.
they practiced using it a lot. And so then so it's not something magical, and so I like that a lot. I hadn't thought about it in that exact sense, but you hear people talk about gears a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and if you don't experience in a top gear, and I think probably because one of the most valuable local matches that I have shot is probably the ones that I shot, or the only one that I shot with iron sights, and I didn't use them like intentionally, uh, and it was just really, and like I did not win, and prior to that, I would go to local matches and just do whatever would net a win, um, and I think that was, for me at that time, was enough to get me out of the thinking of like I have something to defend, because I was like, I'm gonna use iron sights. I'm gonna have them on my gun, but I'm not gonna use them. Um, and I think another step would be like doing what you did, which is to actually just accept, like do the thing that's gonna, like, do the risky plan or whatever, but you pre-decide that, like, before you go to the match, where you're just like, I'm gonna do whatever
I'm
would
taking
get has the
Yeah, I'm
highest.
taking all the swingers in one pass. Right? I'm taking all the
Yeah.
swingers in one pass. I'm shooting the steel very early on entry. I'm aggressively exiting on a mini, or whatever it is. That if you feel like you have something to protect, you're just not going to make that decision. You're going to watch the steel start to fall, and then you're going to lead. Which, again, in a big match that you care about, might be the correct decision in a given moment. But my mindset is so oriented towards that all of the time. I win a couple stages at a local match, and then I go into like coast mode, and it's like, the person who I think I'm shooting against, like they tag a no shoot or something, and then I walk up to that stage and shoot it 3 seconds slower, so it's like we equal out, right? Like it's like that's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, just ease off the gas and just like coast across the finish line. It's like
Yeah.
no, it does not serve you well anywhere else.
No. Like if you want to have new behavior, then you have to behave in the new way. And it's like difficult to do. It's like I'm very resistant to it. And it seems like you have been too for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. And part of it, I mean, part of it is ego. I'm an ego shooter, like, right or wrong, like a large part of my self-image, is tied up in the shooting. And, that probably explains a lot of it, actually, having to be on top, or, having expectations or perceived expectations, that you're supposed to perform at some level.
Yeah.
But and I don't know how you interpreted this from looking at practice score competitor either, but you're right. Like I had more fun than I have had in years shooting like that and shooting at that local. It was freeing. It, it, it was so much fun just to go for it. Just to kind of like let go of the shooting inhibitions and just go shoot, just go, crazy. And it didn't even turn out to be crazy, like the results
No.
weren't crazy.
No.
I think I could shoot even crazier and have even more fun.
So I saw 90% of points.
Yeah.
With the dot gun, and that's basically how I knew. Okay, this is somebody who had a good time. Because 90% of points is like peak fun.
Yeah.
95% of points is very tense.
No,
right? Like
that's
if you
it's
shoot
work.
95% of points, it's like you're, there's white, there's claw marks on that last 1% of points. But guys shooting 89-90% of points, they're having a good time.
Yeah,
having a great.
Yeah, and it was so much fun. Did things that traditionally wouldn't do, like a very, very risky activator sequence, where the obvious move is just to set up, activate, mover, as opposed to like activate, move, try to get to the other position, in time to take it. It's just a blast. It's a blast to, to stretch yourself and see, can it be done? Can I do that? But, I I definitely have made shooting work like for a long time, which, I don't mind work just in general. I like to work. I like to put effort into things because generally your effort is rewarded. But, you know, I had a lot more fun, letting the match be fun, as opposed to the work that it normally is. And, just, I, obviously there's a hard skill, a technical skill deficit between like someone in my tier and someone in your tier, Jay. Like there is, because the absolute best, the most technically skilled shooters, I believe, win nationals. But I don't think the deficit or the delta is that large. I think the larger delta is in the approach and the mindset. And here we have come full circle to the mental game.
Oh,
well, and you, yeah, and I'll let Jay talk in a second, but you're a great example of this because you're probably just above this, right? We sort of have 3 tiers of shooters. People who like spend way too much time thinking about shooting and training for shooting, like on this podcast right now. We're probably all have a similar level of emotional investment, but we have 3 tiers, right? So it's going to go Jay, Tyler, Saul. And in my tier of shooting, I can get beat by people with worse fundamentals than me routinely because they just take better risks. And it's like, I know, like in a technical sense, that I can do things that they can't do, but I'm not doing them. And they're doing things I won't do, and they're beating me, right? So they're not doing things I can't do. They're doing things I won't do.
Yes.
And then there's many people who beat me who do things I can't do and won't do, right? Like, but that's a separate thing. But it's very frustrating to lose to people who are doing things I won't do. So this is I'm glad I'm listening along to the two of you guys. And Jay is got to be one of America's leading experts on how to take very careful, controlled shooting and get wicked fast.
Yeah, and I want Jay to bare his soul and share all his secrets, but I'll share another little nugget just picked up from the Super Squad. Casey Reed said something brilliant, just a brilliant observation. He said that, for the vast majority of stages at Nationals, there's going to be parity. Like everyone's going to finish within a pretty narrow range on the Super Squad. Nationals always comes down to a handful of stages where they're, the winners, the podium guys are going to be head and shoulders above the rest. And I thought that was just a really insightful comment that he made. Like, and he's right. Like, you can go back probably and look at results and see everyone more or less stacked up. But there are always going to be those separator stages
Are
where
you are you saying that you have to score the winner from an entire match? Like, you have to put all the stages together? You can't just pick...
And not only that, but the skills challenged in most matches aren't going to separate the top of the field. And they're really not. And that doesn't mean they're bad stages or bad matches. And it would be too stressful to shoot super high separation stages, like 20 of them. Although I would still like to go to that match. I kind of
I want to go to that match.
I would like to go to the match that's just 20 insanely nuanced. Because something Jay and I have talked about a lot, too, is when you see those high separation stages, then it turns out there's 80 skill gradients, right? When it's a low separation stage, there's like 4. And the entire field falls into sort of one of 4 tiers based on their ability. And who happens to be at the top of an individual tier is just who is on that day. But when you have those really high separation stages, there's nuance and there's gradients that are not accessible, even to other people on the Super Squad. And that's always cool to see.
Well, like you'll see the stage that has, and this is exactly what I said the other day, saw, which was like you have 100% and then you have 40 other people inside of 90. And it's like, whoa. Like, that's not like that. Maybe it was a fun stage. I don't know. But like that did not allow people who are really good at things to do those things, because everyone could do the challenge that was there. But I think that's a different kind of topic. Maybe not. I don't know. But yeah.
Well, I think it's identifying sometimes at those stages, like identifying and sort of having the presence of mind to say, this is a place where I'm going to do something that my competitors are unable or unwilling to do.
Yeah. 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 And then you can pick up, like on those stages, then you pick up a point. But you do it on every single one of those stages. So like, that's cool too.
yeah.
And then there are stages where and you can kind of hear the chatter about it. Oh, people are really scared about this stage. And so then like if that comes up, then that's probably going to be one of those stages where people either like lots of people will fall, not literally, maybe literally. But you'll have a small handful of people who pick up a lot of points on this.
Yeah. Yeah, if you ever hear the term survival stage, tossed around, that's probably one of those. And yeah, that's the difference. I think probably both a function of the technical skill and, your ability to execute it. It's probably not enough to survive. If you're looking to podium at nationals, you're going to have to crush that. You're going to have to crush the survival stage when everyone else is, safely, cruising to, an 84% stage finish or something,
So look at that nationals you shot when the staff finished it. I was talking to friends. I was like, oh, stage 16, right? Like that's going to be like one of these stages. And when I looked at the results afterwards, it's like, surprise, surprise, JJ won it by 10%.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, here's this
Yeah.
stage with like a lot of complexity and far shooting and like a lot of places to lose time or points, but where you're
Yeah.
sort of navigating your own sense of discomfort. And a lot of really good shooters just took mics, right? Because they did not want to bargain on the time, so they took risks. And then other good shooters took time to not have those mics, and yeah, and
Yeah.
the winner of the match, did it faster than everybody with good enough points.
Yeah. And we were standing on stage 16 when Casey made that comment. Yeah, that was a beast. That was a beast of a stage.
So you're in high cap dots for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what I need to do. I mean, I think to some extent I was hiding in production. I think it's kind of time to wake up, smell the roses, and like I said, I've got some choices, but only one of them really makes sense. If I am serious about this, I can either basically remain the same shooter and kind of stagnate, or I can embrace the state of things and keep trying to
Yeah.
try to transform the way I think about it and the way I shoot.
I mean, like, what do you have to lose? I mean, what
Right.
do any of us have to lose to just, I don't know, like, if you're doing
Ego. I've got lots of ego to lose.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I've spent thousands of hours to be this mediocre, Jay.
Yeah.
This is at risk every time I strap on a belt at a match. It's very safe when I strap on a belt by myself at the range. I love it. Like, I'm a working dog too. Like, I want to be out there training. Like, the grind for me, it doesn't lead to burnout. Like, the grind is intrinsically rewarding to me. It's the matches that I feel the sense of threat.
Yeah, I don't know. Treating this as, or at least, I mean, I think that if going into big matches where you have like a strict plan and you're going to adhere to certain behaviors, like that pays off pretty well. But stretching what those behaviors are and then understanding what you can actually do in an environment that you are having fun and playing it like a game. Like when I just think of like when I first started doing any tasks that I like, um, there's so much play involved and just like experimenting with things and trying something because you don't know what you're doing, so you're trying anything. And there's a lot of joy in that. And so it's like trying to bring that back in is very, very fun. And bringing it back in to things that you're already really good at. It can be challenging, but it's also still fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and yeah, it's going to be the game within the game. Like, how do you uh, or how do I uh, really transform how my approach to shooting, like from being very careful, from something that has historically worked, but I don't like, or to put it a different way, like I think seventh at nationals and like 85 to 90% is my ceiling if I remain the same shooter. You know what I mean? Like, I think perennially I could probably go to nationals uh, and shoot production and finish somewhere in the low top 10 and about 85 90%. Like, I don't think that'd be a stretch because that's what careful gets you. Like, shooting all the points and being very careful, that's exactly what it gets you. But I think that is the cap too, and I'm just really fundamentally dissatisfied with that. And the only way I know to go about changing it is to change the way I think about this, and kind of take
Are you
the
sure you couldn't just keep doing what you were doing and just do more of it?
Well, see that that
Kids, that's how I get myself to go to sleep at night. Change is hard, man.
yeah, it
Change is
is.
hard.
It is. Well, that's you know, like you're saying, Jay. I think like I can make a game out of it as well. Like, yeah, I think the training aspect's probably going to suck because it's going to be so uncomfortable, but that's what I need because, all my training is for the most part pretty comfortable. Like, I did make a tactical and a strategic error, like in hindsight. I know now that my training leading up to nationals was incorrect in a way, like because I just focused on being able to execute and hit far stuff and collect all the points. But
But you're great at that stuff. So
right,
so you didn't train any. I mean, I'm talking to myself here.
yes,
I promise. But you
No,
didn't train anything. You just did things you already can do, and then for me, because I've done this exact training regimen leading up to a nationals, it's like I made it really hard, and then I hit all of the things every time. It's like, look at
yes,
me, I hit all the things every time. That's who I am. I'm the guy who hits things every time. Sure, 3 seconds a stage slower than the guys
right.
who win.
No,
Uh,
you're no, you're exactly right. Taken in that light, no, I really didn't train for nationals. I practiced doing all the things. I practiced executing all the things that I could do.
And I think that people who are like, oh, in my lead up to nationals, the last 2 weeks, I just want to focus on execution. I think that makes more sense if execution is not something in your control,
Hmm.
where
yeah,
you can't hit the targets because it's more important to you to do something else than to hit the targets. But there is nothing more important to me than hitting the targets,
Hmm.
right? There is nothing like that's what makes that's what makes me get out of bed in the morning is I'm going to hit those targets. So if I want to train, I need to train something other than hitting targets.
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
I, and it's really hard to train, like, it's hard to, but it's good training when you go out and you have to force yourself to be like, I'm going to behave this way when I set up my, like, on my first run, I'm going to behave this way. And then you have to, like, do so much work to make sure that you do behave that way. And I'm talking like go a little bit crazy, like maybe your first run is going to be in your top 3 fastest runs that you do on an exercise or something like that. And like, but but maybe that's good. And I don't know. But it's not easy.
Yeah.
For a couple of years, you talked about that, Jay. You talked about like, and I don't mean to drag your dirty laundry, but you talked about it on Steve Anderson's podcast, so I'm allowed to. I'm not disclosing anything you haven't shared to the world. But you talked about speed, wanting to be faster, right? Like that, your sense of self is that you were not shooting as fast as the people.
I'm not yeah, I'm like, I'm not fast enough. So what do I have to do? Yeah. Yeah. And it wasn't like I couldn't be fast enough. It was like I'm not fast enough on my first run. And so it
Hmm.
was, well then, so I
And if you can do it on your third run, it's not like you've adapted to the training context for a complicated exercise. It's
no,
it's emotional, right? Like it's at the level of decision and disposition, not technical skill.
yeah,
Like I
yeah,
get, like if you sit there and hammer on a really simple drill, yes, you'll just adapt. Everybody will get better. Like if you just hammer on, but for a complex drill, if you do it faster the second time than the first time, that's like a me problem.
yeah, yeah. No, I think like I mean, I don't think I've stopped working on that same thing. And like I'll do it in dry fire too, where it's like I know I'm gonna run this little mini stage, but I'm gonna in a way as if I've run it already 3 times. And it's like, oh well, I was really aggressive with this movement, and I shot really early on this entry because I would do that if it was my third run. And it sounds silly to someone who has the opposite behavior that we all do, because they're like, yeah, I do that every single time.
Hmm.
And
uh,
I have to be careful because I can't just articulate this in terms of time because the whole, and I know like for a number of years, and maybe it was very beneficial for them. People focus on like, oh, just raw time champ, raw time champ. It's like, well, if time is all that's measured, then I can just make sure I pull the trigger within the time that I've set for myself. Like that's, but then when it's something I care about, I will not do that. like that will not change me. That will be like a context specific behavior. If you've done any dog training, it's like they don't generalize, right? Like it's like, oh, this desired behavior in this place. They don't sort of bring it to another place, which is why, variety matters. And so just focusing, oh, I could go to local matches. It's not a matter of I'm going to make the time happen. It's something deeper than time that you're talking about, Jay.
Yeah. It's like and we were kind of talking before Tyler, like the internal sense of a little bit out of control that probably a lot of people are in, but it's good enough to hit 90% plus of the points. And like you can turn that dial up where you get like you do the same thing except just a little bit slower. And so it's like, well, what should you do? I don't know. Probably the thing that's a little bit uncomfortable. It feels a little crazy.
Yeah, we were talking about that in the context of Georgia State and other places. People are shooting open who don't normally shoot open, who often shoot. And so it's like Sal Luna just shot open at Georgia State. And I'm sure I imagine he shot slightly better points than the other guys in open, slower.
Yeah, knowing Sal, that's probably a pretty good bet.
and he's not slow with a production gun.
No.
But like the disposition that is rewarded in open is not that.
Yeah.
It's not do it right the first time.
No.
I can confirm Sal is not slow. He's been the bane of my existence for years and years now.
Yeah, because you get to shoot. You have a lot of score comparisons directly with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's what's also that immediately after the match is kind of when I had the little crisis there, like kind of bummed, in spite of having gotten exactly what I deserved, exactly what I bought with my training, but it's not like I don't know this or didn't know this. This has all happened before, it's just I've very incrementally made my time gains and like little efficiencies here without a big jump. I think like I've got to make a big change to make a big jump. You know what I mean? Like it's not, I'm not going to get where I need to be by further refining my entries, you know what I mean? Like it's going to be from changing the way I think about the big picture. Like there,
you hit the asymptote of this Tyler. You need a different Tyler. Like
yes.
the Tyler who goes to a higher height is a different Tyler.
Yeah.
Oh no, this is profoundly uncomfortable. Yes.
Yes.
Is some of this looking like you're fresh off of shooting on the Super Squad and you're seeing people behave in a certain way and do certain things and you're like, well, like why am I not doing that?
Yeah.
Okay, so some of it, yeah, I mean,
exactly. It's like going to you're in high school, you go to a dance and you see like the uninhibited kids go out, or I don't know why they're uninhibited. Maybe substances involved, maybe not. But they go out and they're dancing, they're having a good time. People are clapping for them, and like here you are in the corner, and you're like, I'll just keep like swaying back and forth. Like
it's like you never actually learned how to dance doing that. I can tell you this.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's like watching shooters who I admire. They have the highest level of technical skill, but I know they really they can do more things than I can, but not a lot. Or if they can, it's by a small margin. Like the reason I'm not doing it isn't because I can't do it. It's because I'm inhibited, in doing that or choosing not to, in calling it strategy. So,
Joel Fisher, who is in the Discord but never in the Discord, and who I don't even. Hi, Joel, if you're listening. He we were talking, and I think Saul, you were there too. But how cool it would be if there was a selection on Practice Score to select for, um, like what everyone's pure skill. So like pure skill outcome, and where everyone would fall, and you would have different results, and probably I don't know, maybe they'd be tighter at the top, maybe they would be more separation, but they would be different. And so it really brings in the behavioral aspect of like
Yeah.
people behave how they do, and that creates probably bigger gaps than just the skill things. Depends on the match too and the test. But.
Yeah.
I'm not lamenting the fact that I got into this when I was already old, but one of the benefits of picking up an activity in youth is not just neuroplasticity and all of that sort of thing. It's I can think of this in terms of skiing. When I was a kid, I did a lot of skiing, and I used to fling myself off of things, just into the air. Like I spent a lot of time separating from the ground on skis as a kid, without like a very refined level of skill. Like I became a very competent skier, but not, competitive. But I was happy to like just send myself into the air, and that's because I was a kid, right? Like if you teach a 40-year-old to ski, they will never do that smartly, because your joints, you have something you want to protect. And I think I came into shooting, on the other side of like moving through life freely. I had kids, I was married, more or less stable, and so everything about me rewarded being careful. And so I think sometimes some of the shooters who start when they're young, one of the other benefits of starting when you're young is you get to shoot with some freedom. And sometimes I'll see like 15, 16-year-old junior shooters like missing things really, really quickly. And it's like, oh, that looks like fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and they're having fun like in the moment. And then someone tells them like, oh, you should just hit the targets. Your score would be so much better. I'm like, no, stop it. Don't tell them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's right. There's a freedom to youth, and definitely a freedom to that kind of shooting. And going back to, are your shooting is your shooting self just really somewhat a reflection of who you actually are?
Yep.
I think yes.
Yeah.
And
You were describing standing away from all of the people who are just out there dancing. I'm like, yeah, that's definitely like going out and dancing. Yeah. Makes me uncomfortable.
Yes.
Probably do that.
Yeah, so I think I'm not going to go pick up ballroom dancing, but I think what I will do is start shooting a little fearlessly, and making myself really, really. I don't think it's going to be enough to just be mildly uncomfortable. I think I'm going to have to be very uncomfortable. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, and I think like you'll have to check yourself on it in the moment. Like you'll have to know, you'll be like, oh, that would be uncomfortable, but this is what I'm going to do. And then you'll be like, oh wait, I just thought about doing the thing that I should do and then didn't do it. So now I need to revert back to the original.
Yeah.
What I need to actually do.
This is a really concrete example that Jay knows about. Is I don't have like a J speed draw, but I have a good draw. Like I can get the gun pointed to a target and fire a gross body index shot, like essentially an unsighted shot out to whatever distance. And I've done that so much in dry fire and so much in live fire by myself that is something I can do. Worst case scenario, if I just take this gross body shot, worst case, it's going to be a Charlie.
Yeah,
and I'm going to know about it. And it's going to be a low Charlie, and I'm going to know about it in real time. And yet I go to a match, and there's an open target at 10 yards that you can see from the start position, and I draw, and I wait until I see my dot on the letter A, and then I press the trigger, and it's a 120 or whatever. It's like, why? Like, why did I spend hundreds of hours developing this gross body index? Like, why don't I just draw the gun and start shooting and deal with it? And, sometimes it'll be Charlies. And it's for me, it's not that specific 0.3 or 0.5 of a second. It's the whole attitude that if I do that on that first target, then I can do that in other places where it's pure reward.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like it's very hard for me to do that at a quote unquote a match I care about.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting people just take body index draw shots, but I kind of should.
Yeah, and I think another big takeaway was like seeing just how fast things are processed by the tip top guys. Like misses on steel, like they're not going to. I didn't see those guys when they missed on steel transition off. Like they're processing that miss like as they broke the shot, and they're making it up before the transition occurs. And so it's bing bing as opposed to bing bing and then back. Everything, even the mistakes. They're making, and I talked to my buddy Brian of the match about this. We were just watching these guys, like they make their mistakes faster, even some pretty significant mistakes, like, and they're back on plan, and even with their mistakes, they're faster than I am. Like there's really no excuse for that. That's
Oh, dude, it's the worst feeling in the world to be half a second behind someone and they had 4 makeups.
Yes.
And you went 1 for 1 on all the steel.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, I gave them time that I can't get back. And they took time that gave them the luxury of those 4 makeups. So It's like they finished the stage like a big field course, and they're half a second faster, and you're there, and you watch them send 4 makeups. And you went 1 for 1 on everything.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Everything had to go perfect for me to be almost competitive, and they sort of had enough slack in their system and enough processing speed that it didn't have to go perfect for them to stay in the competitive band.
And that goes back to the kind of spectrum of like choreography versus improvisation. I'm super, super reliant on choreography. And again, it works until it doesn't, or it works to a certain level and then it stops. Like I can plan something, execute it perfectly where, these guys are blowing through and they're, on the fly making adjustments and moving, even though they didn't necessarily like bake that in, plan that in. Like they perceive they can be leaning and getting that momentum shift, while they're cranking off those shots, and the cumulative effect is 2, 3, 4 seconds.
Yeah.
So
I think we've talked about it a lot on probably this podcast and others, but like what you brought up about making mistakes quickly, and it's like, and you see that a lot, and then again you're like, how do you the only way to do that is to go at a speed where you could make a mistake, and probably beyond that, speed it, and then see how quick you can make adjustments. And like in training too, it's like obviously it's easier to do in training than it is at a match, but you got to start somewhere. And if you never go to match, me included,
well, then it's you got to miss some steel, right? And you've got to miss some steel really quickly.
Yes.
Yeah.
You got to shoot. You got to shoot at a pace where missing steel is a realistic possibility because you're just on the trigger too soon. But you have the attention on the target that the makeup is, a 25 makeup or whatever it is, distance dependent, but where it's a quick visual makeup or a quick sensorial makeup.
Yeah. And I think it's explained in large part, like if you practice to the level of perfection and you're very accustomed to going 1 for 1, like when you don't, it really throws you off. And I think that explains part of why, it's when a mistake is made, it's really slow to make that up, because you're like, this is not supposed to happen.
Well, look, this is you have this interruption, right? It's the same as those of us whose guns always work. Like when you actually have a light strike in a match, you don't instantly like tap rack because this hasn't happened in the last 15,000 rounds you've shot. Like
Yeah.
you're like, what's happening, right? And there's like a moment of pause. Now, I'm not suggesting people load dodgy ammo, like so that they have faster processing, but certainly with the operating at a speed where mistakes are more frequent.
Yeah. I think it's really hard to do when I'm just thinking of like a previous me that was so resistant to it because I was thinking, yeah, but like really just super tidy is the way to go. And 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 still that sounds so appealing to me. Um, but I think I think it makes a really big difference when you just observe the super squad. You don't have to be on the super squad, but you just watch, or you watch a lot of video of people who are at the skill level that maybe you want to be at, and you watch it so much, and then you see what their behavior is like. I don't know how many times I've watched. It's on YouTube. Like someone took it from 2017 Hindsight Nationals. It was like the limited division super squad, and I don't know how many times I've watched that video, but you see it's got a ton of steel on the stage, and I think I could be totally wrong, but I think the winner of the stage for the super squad might have been like John Browning or something, and he had a ton of makeups on steel. Like he'd come into a position and fire 3 shots without even hitting a piece of steel, and then started to clean him up. But it was no break in the shooting. It wasn't like pop, and it was like there was no pause. It was just pop, 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 ping, 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 and then going on. Um, and and there's so much to be learned from watching people's behavior to doing those things, as opposed to thinking that the top is perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what's the thing that's so frustrating is somebody finishes the match and then they remove their mistakes from the match, right? And so they were like, what would have happened without my mistakes? It's like no, 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 no. What if you could have made all those mistakes 15% faster?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I posted this in the Discord, and not to pick on Tom Castro in any way, it's just an example. It's if you take his score from Limited Optics in that match, the Siler one, the Handgun Nationals, and you just give him all alphas for every single stage, all alphas, he doesn't win the match.
Yeah.
Like all alphas, and I mean, I forgot what the time delta was, but it wasn't huge. It was 281 and 257, 24 seconds. So he's 24 seconds slower on a 16-stage match, 1.5 seconds a stage. If you give him all alphas, he doesn't win.
Yeah, and that's some powerful
That's
math.
mind-boggling. Like
It is.
I don't care
Yeah.
how much I look at the math. Like for me to internalize that, it's like 1.5 seconds slower a stage. I could shoot all alphas and not win. It's like okay.
Yeah.
Then we get back to the discussion about like we're shooting not for points or for time, but we're shooting for score, which is hit factor score. And like what's the best hit factor that we can get?
How can I maximize my hit factor? Not how can I protect my alphas, not how can I drop my time. What can I do to maximize my hit factor within my control and within my skill sort of envelope at this moment? And then how can I move that?
And certainly not like how do I protect my emotions if I have a miss? Like, but like I feel it's so damaging if I have a miss or something like that. And when it's really not, like you hit a no shoot at this match, Tyler, and it was like, but you made it up, and that's 10 points, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's 5 Charlies. In minor, every no shoot is 5 Charlies. It's like if you just shot 22 alphas, 4 Charlies. Well, now you shot 9 Charlies, right? Like that's what that is. And yeah, I will shoot a mic before I'll shoot a no shoot because I can't see the mic.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that knowing that about the scoring system can also help. Like you're not shooting mics, but your time penalty counts the same. Like it's not going to show up on the score sheet. It's another ego thing, because it's gratifying to finish a match and have a in the summary on competitor, it's penalty free, but that's not accurate because there are a whole lot of instances in there where the penalties are reflected just in the time column.
Yeah. Yep.
So.
Yeah, and the way hit factor works is pretty unrelenting, right? There's just no.
Yeah.
It's the numerators just can't get big enough.
We were talking about a recent match that had like a really high. Did you see that what the final factor, like the global was
For African Handgun Championship? It was 9.9 something in production
9.9 something in production optics. That's really high. And so then when you look at the behavior change that is required for the difference between a 7.2 and a 9.9, like there's more things that you have an opportunity to make more mistakes quickly.
Yeah.
You might not make the mistakes, and you usually don't, but you're going to be operating at the 9.9 potential or whatever.
Yeah, imagine if you walked onto a match and you just said, I'm going to treat every stage here like a 10-factor stage. I'm going to make the, no, really, I mean, this is how it might work in my brain. I'm this thought experiment, but it's like, what would be the correct set of decisions if this was a 10-factor stage? And even if we live in a normative 7.5, which is what most matches end up in minor, in high cap dot minor is between 7 and 8. But if I just approached everything like it's a 10-factor stage and made decisions accordingly, I bet I'd do better.
Yeah, or maybe a 16 flat, perfect 16 factor.
Oh, he removed that. It's okay now. Funny joke.
Oh. But yeah, I think that's kind of a good that might work, Saul. That might be good.
Everything's just can you count now?
Yeah.
Oh. 15. Anything over a 15 split doesn't count.
I shot a GM run with just the other day with nothing faster than the 17. Can you?
Oh, nice. The reloads
Which is not actually something to be proud of. Yeah, the reloads were on.
The draws and the reloads were on point then.
Yeah, but it was all 17s.
Yeah.
And 18s.
Yeah.
No, I think we've sort of driven this one around in a circle that's very gratifying for me. Anything else you guys want to cover?
We should thank Shooters Connection.
Yeah, we should. I just ordered more stuff from them this week, and I forgot to use the referral affiliate link, but next time I'll use the affiliate link.
Yeah, that's a good idea. The affiliate link for Shooters Connection. And then while we're talking about Shooters Connection, though, I don't know if John works there anymore, but John also has products that he makes that are available on Shooters Connection and Ben Sticker.
I handled his dry fire mag insert at the booth, at the Mark 7 booth at Nationals, and I liked it. Thought it was really, really good.
Yeah, John pays.
I hate screwing around with dummy rounds, and so that's a really nice way to get the effect without having to screw around with dummy rounds.
Yeah. I like to have a couple dummy rounds around because I like to do unloaded starts, but that's really it. I don't like to drop mags with dummy rounds in them for no reason and just have them skitter across the floor and have to fish them out from underneath furniture. That's not fun for me.
One more thing that people, if they haven't seen it, Robert Vogel put a video up recently. It's like 6 minutes long. It's really good. It's like really good stuff in that video. It talks about dry fire. He talks about like paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about like the feeling, like the little bit of you, or like the value in thinking that the gun might go off.
That was good.
That was really good. Yeah. And I think it might be hard for people to if they don't I don't know. I found this connection easier to make if you go from your dry fire space, your specific space, to then live firing like very quickly and then come back. It's like easier to do and then replicate. But
This
I
is
don't know.
where you guys flex on all of us without home ranges again.
Yes.
You're
I
like,
can drive really fast and it's still 20 minutes.
yeah, I haven't done that, but that would mess with me a little bit. Coming back in for the second round of dry fire, I would just be like compulsively checking, chamber checking. Like, it's not loaded, right? Like, probably defeat the purpose. But
Yeah, that's the thing. You have to be like, and you come back if your gun's really hot still,
yeah,
and you're like,
yeah,
if my cap cap's gonna melt, and then it gets really like realistic,
yeah.
You
Yeah,
like can't slide to rack it because it's still really hot.
yeah. That was good. That was my prime takeaway as well. Like, I like the way he described, you know, you have to believe you're about to make holes in your drywall. So
Dude, I don't think that used to bother me a few years ago, but it really bothers me now. Is sometimes I'll dry fire just out of a sense of habit, and I'll know they're bad shots, but like not do anything about them in the moment, and then I'll sort of like feel this wave of revulsion and like self-loathing. It's like, what am I doing, man? It's like I'm shooting Charlies and Deltas. Imaginary. Why am I practicing shooting imaginary Charlies and Deltas? Right? Like,
yeah,
and I'm not like getting faster. It's not like trading for that. It's just not paying attention.
yeah.
It's like maybe if I just dumbly continue lifting the barbell, then eventually I'll get strong. How many reps do you need to do with 45 pounds for it to count?
Yeah, same exact number every single day. That's whatever that.
Yep.
Well, I really appreciate you guys hopping on here, and we do hope Jeff and Jeremy will keep this thing running. You other people who agree that they should keep this running, make sure they know that y'all appreciate them. I hear it from people all the time, but I don't know if Jeff and Jeremy do. They're like, "Oh, I met Jeff and Jeremy. It was so cool." I was like, "Really? Huh?"
I think at this point the Discord will not allow the podcast to die.
But Jeff can allow the Discord to die. All he has to do is yeah, be careful. Don't tempt him.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
somebody want to close this? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I don't know if this will be good for the listeners, but I certainly appreciate just kind of talking through with you guys kind of the stuff I've been thinking about and changes in approach, and I think it was good to get off my chest and just kind of gut check. Does this sound right? You guys on board with my plan? So I appreciate it.
Well, man, I look forward to the future updates from Hoser Tyler.
Yeah, we'll be able to tell from just looking at practice score. It's fine.
87% of points. CO?
Oh.
All right. Somebody close us out here. Jay, do the honors.
Yeah, it's time to pinch it off or whatever.